Greetings, salutations. I had a pretty interesting day today. Yeah, no, it's Thursday. No, it's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. Really busy, and this is what I deem most important. So I'm gonna get this reading done. And after, I got a second bag of cookies from Adele. After I read, I'm gonna work. And after work, I might lift, or I want to read. I'd rather read than lift, but I don't know what to do. And then I'll read more. And tonight, we'll either watch Invincible, or if you fall asleep, I'm gonna finish reading. Who knows? It's empty. There we go. Okay. She had wanted him to persuade her from the beginning, but Peter didn't know that he had already won. If I believe that, if I accept that, then I've got to sit back and watch while all the opportunities vanish. And then when I'm old enough, it's too late. Val, listen to me. I know how you feel about me. You always have. I was a vicious, nasty brother. I was cruel to you and crueler to Ender before they took him. But I didn't hate you. I loved you both. I just had to have control. Do you understand that? It's the most important thing to me. It's my greatest gift. I can see where the weak points are. I can see how to get in and use them. I just see those things without even trying. I could have become a businessman and run some big corporation. I'd scramble and maneuver until I was at the top of everything, and what would I have? Nothing. I'm going to rule, Val. I'm gonna have control of something. But I want it to be something worth ruling. I want to accomplish something worthwhile. A Pax Americana ruling. I want to a Pax Americana through the whole world, so that when somebody else comes, after we beat the buggers, when somebody else comes here to defeat us, they'll find we've already spread over 1,000 worlds. We're at peace with ourselves and impossible to destroy. Do you understand? I want to save mankind from self-destruction. She had never seen him speak with such sincerity, with no hint of mockery, no trace of a lie in his voice. He was getting better at this, or maybe he was actually touching on the truth. So a 12-year-old boy and his kid sister are going to save the world. How old was Alexander? I'm not going to do it overnight. I'm going to start now, if you help me. I don't believe what you did to those squirrels was part of an act. I think you did it because you loved to do it. Suddenly, Peter wept into his hands. Val assumed that he was pretending, but then she wondered. It was possible, wasn't it, that he loved her, and that in his time of terrifying opportunity he was willing to weaken himself before her in order to win her love? He's manipulating me, she thought, but that doesn't mean he isn't sincere. His cheeks were wet when he took his hands away, his eyes rimmed in red. I know, he said. It's what I'm most afraid of, that I really am a monster. I don't want to be a killer. I just can't help it. She had never seen him show weakness. You're so clever, Peter. You saved your weakness so that you could use it to move on me now. And yet, it did move her. Because if it were true, even partly true, then Peter was not a monster. And so she could satisfy her Peter-like love of power without fear of becoming monstrous herself. She knew that Peter was calculating even now, but she believed that under the calculations he was telling the truth. It had been hidden layers deep, but he had probed her until he found her trust. Val, if you don't help me, I don't know what I'll become. But if you're there, my partner and everything, you can keep me from becoming like that, like the bad ones. She nodded. You're only pretending to share power with me, she thought. But in fact, I have power over you, even though you don't know it. I will. I'll help you. As soon as Father got them both on his citizen's axis, they began testing the waters. They stayed away from the nets that required use of a real name. That wasn't hard because real names only had to do with money. They didn't need money. They needed respect, and that they could earn. With false names on the right nets, they could be anybody. Old men, middle-aged women, anybody, as long as they were careful about the way they wrote. All that anyone would see were their words, their ideas. Every citizen started equal in the nets. They used throwaway names with their early efforts, not the identities that Peter had planned to make famous and influential. Of course, they were not invited to take part in the great national and international political forums. They could only be audiences there until they were invited or elected to take part. But they signed on and watched, reading some of the essays published by the great names, witnessing the debates that played across their desks. And in the lesser conferences where common people commented about the great debates, they began to insert their comments. At first, Peter insisted that they be deliberately inflammatory. We can't learn how our style of writing is working unless we get responses, and if we're bland, no one will answer. They were not bland, and people answered. The responses that got posted on the public nets were vinegar. The responses that were sent as mail for Peter and Valentine to read privately were poisonous. But they did learn what attributes of the writing were seized upon it as child and immature, and they got better. When Peter was satisfied that they knew how to sound adult, he killed the old identities, and they began to prepare to attract real attention. We have to seem completely separate. We'll write about different things at different times. We'll never refer to each other. You'll mostly work on the West Coast nets. I'll mostly work in the South. Regional issues too, so do your homework. They did their homework. Mother and father worried sometimes. With Peter and Valentine constantly together, their desks tucked under their arms, but they couldn't complain. Their grades were good, and Valentine was such a good influence on Peter. She had changed his whole attitude towards everything. And Peter and Valentine sat together in the woods in good weather, in pocket restaurants and indoor parks when it rained, and they composed their political commentaries. Peter carefully designed both characters so neither one had all of his ideas. There were even some spare identities that they used to drop in third-party opinions. Let both of them find a following as they can, said Peter. Once tired of writing and rewriting until Peter was satisfied, Val despaired and said, "Write it yourself then." "I can't," he answered. "They can't both sound alike, ever. You forget that someday we'll be famous enough that somebody will start running analysis. Start running analysis. We have to come up as many different people every time. We have to come up as different people every time." So she wrote on. Her main identity on the nets was Demosthenes. Peter chose the name. He called himself Locke. They were obvious pseudonyms, but that was part of the plan. With any luck, they'll start trying to guess who we are. If we get famous enough, the government can always access and find out who we really are. When that happens, we'll be too entrenched to suffer much loss. People might be shocked that Demosthenes and Locke are 2 kids, but they'll already be used to listening to us. They began composing debates for their characters. Valentine would prepare an opening statement, and Peter would invent a throwaway name to answer her. Her answer would be intelligent, and the debate would be lively. Lots of clever invective and good political rhetoric. Valentine had a knack for alliteration that made her phrases memorable. Then they would enter the debate into the network, separated by a reasonable amount of time, as if they were actually making them up on the spot. Sometimes a few other netters would interpose comments, but Peter and Val would usually ignore them or change their own comments only slightly to accommodate what had been said. Peter took careful note of all their most memorable phrases, and then did searches from time to time to find those phrases cropping up in other places. Not all of them did, but most of them were repeated here and there, and some of them even showed up in the major debates on the prestige nets. "We're being read," Peter said. "The ideas are seeping out. The phrases, anyway. That's just the measure. Look, we're having some influence. Nobody quotes us by name yet, but they're discussing the points we raised. We're helping set the agenda. We're getting there. Should we try to get into the main debate? No, we'll wait until they ask us." They had only been doing it 7 months when one of the West Coast nets sent Demosthenes a message, an offer for a weekly column in a pretty good news net. I can't do a weekly column, Valentine said. I don't even have a monthly period yet. The two aren't related, Peter said. They are to me. I'm still a kid. Tell them yes, but since you prefer not to have your true identity revealed, you want them to pay you in network time, a new access code through their corporate identity. So when the government traces me, you'll just be a person who can sign on through CalNet. Father Citizen's access doesn't get involved. What I can't figure out is why they wanted Demosthenes before Locke. Talent rises to the top. As a game, it was fun, but Valentine didn't like some of the positions Peter made Demosthenes take. Demosthenes began to develop as a fairly paranoid anti-Russian writer. It bothered her because Peter was the one who knew how to exploit fear in his writing. She had to keep coming to him for ideas on how to do it. Meanwhile, Locke followed her moderate. Locke followed her moderate, empathetic strategies. In a sense, in a way, by having her write Demosthenes, it meant that he also had some empathy, just as Locke could play on others' fears. But the main effect was to keep her inextricably tied to Peter. She couldn't go off and use Demosthenes for her own purposes. She wouldn't know how to use him. Still, it worked both ways. He couldn't write Locke without her, or could he? I thought the idea was to unify the world. If I write like this, you say I should, Peter. I'm pretty much calling for war to break up the Warsaw Pact. Not war, just open nets and prohibition of interception. Free flow of information, compliance with the League rules, for heaven's sake. Without meaning to, Valentine started talking in Demosthenes' voice. Even though she certainly wasn't speaking Demosthenes' opinions, everyone knows that from the beginning of the League, the Second Warsaw Pact was to be regarded as a single entity where the rules were concerned. International free flow is still open, but between the Warsaw Pact nations, these things are international matters. That's why they were willing to allow American hegemonies in the League. You're arguing Locke's part, Val. Trust me. You have to call for the Warsaw Pact to lose official status. You have to get a lot of people really angry. Then later, when you begin to recognize the need for compromise, then they stop listening to me and go off and fight a war. Val, trust me. I know what I'm doing. How do you know? You're not any smarter than me. You've never done this before, either. I'm 13 and you're 10, almost 11, and I know how these things work. All right, I'll do it your way, but I won't do any of these liberty or death things. You will too. And someday when they catch us and wonder why your sister was such a warmonger, I can just bet you'll tell them that it was you. I bet you'll tell them that you told me to do it. Are you sure you're not having a period, little woman? I hate you, Peter Wiggin. What bothered Valentine most was when our column got syndicated into several other regional news nets, and Father started reading it and quoting it from the table. Finally, a man with some sense, he said. Then he quoted some of the passages Valentine hated worse in his own work. It's fine to work with these hegemonist Russians with the buggers out there, but after we win, I can't see leaving half the civilized world as virtual serfs in the Russian Empire, can you, dear? I think you're taking this all too seriously, said Mother. I like this Demosthenes. I like the way he thinks. I'm surprised he isn't in the major nets. I've looked for him in the international relations debates, and you know he's never taken part in any of them. Valentine left her appetite and left the table. Peter followed her after a respectable interval. So you don't like lying to Father, he said. So what? You're not lying to him. He doesn't think you're really Demosthenes, and Demosthenes isn't saying things you really believe. They cancel each other out. They amount to nothing. That's the kind of reasoning that makes Locke such an ass. But what really bothered her was not that she was lying to Father. It was the fact that Father actually agreed with Demosthenes. She thought that only fools would follow him. After a few days later, Locke got picked up for a column in the New England Newsnet, specifically to provide a contrasting view for their popular column from Demosthenes. Not bad for two kids who've only got about 8 pubic hairs between them, Peter said. It's a long way between writing a Newsnet column and ruling the world, Valentine reminded him. It's such a long way that no one has ever done it. They have, or the moral equivalent. I'm going to say snide things about Demosthenes in my first column. Well, Demosthenes isn't going to notice that Locke exists, ever, for now. With their identities now fully supported by their income from writing columns, they use Father's access now only for the throwaway identities. Mother commented that they were spending too much time on the nets. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, she reminded Peter. Peter let his hand tremble a little bit, and he said, I think I should stop. I think I might be able to keep things under control this time. I really do. No, no, Mother said. I don't want you to stop. Just be careful, that's all. I'm careful, Mom. Nothing was different. Nothing had changed in the year. Ender was sure of it. And yet it all seemed to have gone sour. He was still the leading soldier in the standings, and no one doubted that he deserved it now. At the age of 9, he was a toon leader in Phoenix Army with Petra Arcanian as his commander. He still led his evening practice sessions, and now they were attended by an elite group of soldiers nominated by their commanders, though any Launchi who wanted to could still come. Alai was also a toon leader in another army, but they were still good friends. Shen was not a leader, but that was no barrier. Dink Meeker had finally accepted command and succeeded Rose the Nose in Rat Army's command. All is going well, very well. I couldn't ask for anything better. So why do I hate my life? He went through the paces of the practice. I apologize. That is the reading time. I can only make these so long, I think, or else YouTube won't be able to upload them. So, love you, Kenzie. I will keep reading. Bye-bye.